Now, fast forward all of that, and I get married, and I believe I'm supposed to be over the finances because I saw my mom resist my father with the finances because she didn't want to be controlled or whatever her logic was. And I'm going to be what he tried to be, and I'm going to succeed. Except for there's one problem, one big problem.
Look, treat me like the rock. When you see me, I'm electrifying. Yeah, only talk I do is edifying. They say preach, they say church when I'm testifying. Hear you running at the mouth.
What's going on, fam? You already know who I am, so let's get into it. At the beginning of the year, I asked God a bold question. I don't even really fully understand still why I was compelled to ask God this specific question, but I did. I asked the question, God, why do I have an unhealthy relationship with money? That was my question. Last week, I got the answer to the question. And the answer was a little surprising, and I want to unpack that for you in this episode. If you have not already, go ahead, like, subscribe, share, tell somebody, do all of the things. We'll be glad to have you here rocking with us on the prompt. But I hope that this episode will really cause you to ask God some questions that you need answers to, questions you haven't even thought that you need answers to. So before I get into the answer I received, I want to give you a little bit of background about me. I want to give you a little insight into who I am, where I came from, what shaped me, the fires of my life. And so if I rewind all the way back to rural South Georgia, or the area I stayed in, my life started in poverty. But I didn't really fully know I was poor. I didn't know I was living in poverty per se. I had a friend that stayed across the street that was a little better, not a little, their family was better off than us. There were speckled throughout our neighborhood families that were better than us. Only time I saw white folks when I went to school or we went downtown. I stayed in a predominantly Black neighborhood. So that was my reality. But we had a good time. If you got a bike for Christmas, you were really doing something great. Some kids got Ataris because their families were a little more well off, all of that kind of stuff. But we all hung together. We all stuck together. So I started out in life in poverty. When I say I started out in poverty, I can remember I was just telling my kids this the other day. Y'all don't know what government cheese looks like. Y'all don't know really what having to have powdered milk looks like. Y'all don't know about the big cans of thick peanut butter. Y'all don't know about, every now and again you could get some meat, and that was a real treat when you could get some of the meat from the USDA. They ain't know about those type of struggles. They ain't know about how sugar toast was like considered a delicacy, a little bit of dessert. They didn't understand about that big old block of butter that you got from the government, and among other things that came with poverty. My kids have never had to go to a laundromat because they had to. They've been to one, but they've never gone to one because they had to, because they didn't have a wash and dry in there. They don't know what it's like to hang clothes out on the line, going through the neighborhood, picking up cans and bottles. I don't know. Some of y'all might can relate to that. Some of y'all can't. But had a friend who, again, they stayed across the street. They were a little more well off. They had central heating air. We didn't have that. We had a window unit at best. And so until I was about 6, 7, what have you, I made a move. My mom got married. We made a move to rural North Florida. So when we made the move to rural North Florida, we had a house. Let me say that. We lived in a house. We didn't rent it. It is actually owned by my grandparents. My mom lived there in that. So we had a house. But when I moved to rural North Florida, we had a better house. We had central heat and air. I had my own bedroom, because before I slept in the room in the bed with my mom most of the time. I didn't have my own bedroom. I had my own bedroom. Yeah, it was phenomenal. I stayed in the white part of town and I was surrounded by more white people, and the black people were the minority in everyday life when I moved. And so we got to where we were living, and I lived on the white side of town. Then there was a side of town called the Hill, preceded by a racial slur. And everyone was comfortable kind of using that term. That's what it was known at. The people stayed on the Hill. So I had to go across town to go play with my friends. So it is like roles reversed. I was the kid who had a little more than my friends. So when we did that, it kind of shifted my perspective. And then I understood kind of how poor we were that I didn't really know. I got to give you this backstory because I want you to, hopefully you can relate to this. And if you can't, I get it. But for those of us who can, these are the fires that shaped us into the men and women we are today. So I'm in this small rural town, a lot of racism, different things. That's a episode for a whole nother day. But we did that. And growing up, I can recall my father. Now I'm going to call him my father. It's my stepfather, but he is the man I call father. If you hear me say dad or pop, that's relating to my biological father. If you hear me say father, I'm talking about my stepfather because I want to give him that honor. He was a father to me. He helped raise and shape me. But I can remember him and my mom would have these kind of knockdown, drag out conversations, intense moments of fellowship they would have around money and that struggle because my stepfather or my father was white and he had a different mindset about money. That's again another one of those conversations about financial literacy and where people came from. And the first time I got a chance to go to where he was from up north and saw where they lived and how they lived, it's like you grew up in general compared to how I was growing up and how my mom and them may have grew up a little bit. You grew up a lot better. Not saying that his parents were wealthy, but they were probably in a better position to some degree than my grandparents. So we go up there and I've seen that. So I know his mindset is a whole lot different. I mean, they used to send us honey hams from Heavenly Hams for every Thanksgiving or whatever. Like those hams were not cheap. But at that point, it was a different perspective because now my mom and with my father, they can go buy that spiral cut ham. I used to love them things, making them grilled cheese with the leftover ham after Thanksgiving. They sent one every Thanksgiving. Woo! Taking me back. So, but they had these struggles, and my father was always thinking about the future and saving and not having to work the whole entirety of his life. And the reality is he died within 2 years of retiring. He retired at 65, and within 2 years he was gone of a massive heart attack unexpectedly. So he tried to teach that, and my mom was just a spender. She was not financially disciplined. So hello, I picked up more her side than my father's side, because being financially undisciplined, I could kind of do what I want. Yeah, I could do what I want. I could go and eat out at a nice restaurant at, 12 and 13, 14, 15, because I could get money from my mom and be undisciplined. They ate out a lot. I know that bothered my father, not because he wanted her to cook so much. It's just the spending of the money. And so I know that weighed heavily on him, stressed him out a lot. So continue forward, he tried to teach me things around budgeting. He tried to teach me to start a holiday club so you can, not that we can't buy you Christmas gifts, but you'll have plenty of money that you can either just use how you want to in a holiday club, which is a little bit different in these days, I think. But back then you went in and you started with $10 and you had a little coupon book and you paid so much money in from your allowance, from doing the work, whatever it was, and you paid it in. Then right like a month before Christmas, you got to pull it all out. You knew how much you were going to have because you couldn't touch it before then. And I was undisciplined. And I started one, but I ain't never save up all the money I'm supposed to. It ain't that you like something happened if you didn't put it in there. But he tried to teach me financial discipline. Didn't work. Didn't work. Because I had a mom who was backing me not getting the lesson because she didn't want to get the lesson. So of course she's not going to make me get the lesson. Now, fast forward all of that. And I get married. And I believe I'm supposed to be over the finances because I saw my mom resist my father with the finances because she didn't want to be controlled or whatever her logic was. And I'm going to be what he tried to be, and I'm going to succeed. Except for there's one problem, one big problem. I was going to try and demonstrate something I had never practiced. That's kind of a big deal. I'm trying to demonstrate something in my new marriage that I had never practiced. Oh my, look at that fun. Isn't that nice? Money to this day is still one of the toughest conversations for my wife and I to have. And that, I think that's part of why I started asking the question, because I want that to stop being a difficult conversation for us to have. And there's a number of reasons of why it is, but I want to deal with the parts that I can control. And I want that to stop being a difficult conversation. As the word of God says this, as much as it pertains to you, be at peace with all men. I want to do as much as it pertains to me. I want to be at peace with my wife around finances. And whether she's ever comes to being at peace with me about it, that's a whole nother ball. But I'm not in control of that. And so that's our toughest conversation. Even after 25 years of marriage, that's the challenge. So this year, like I said, I want to break that. I want to really break that behavior. I really want to be in a situation where I understand why I have an unhealthy relationship with money and then fix the problem or heal the problem. I like fixing. Let's heal. So I want to heal it. So the answer came last week unexpectedly, but preceding the answer, there's this chant that just kind of hit my spirit. And it's like a thought that just popped in my head and it became this chant. And the chant was this: God, forgive me for treating you like you've ever failed me. And I just started saying it repeatedly. God, forgive me for treating you like you have ever failed me. One more time. God, forgive me for treating you like you have ever failed me. And you're not going to start failing me now. And so that was the chant that came. And it's like after I said that last part, because I actually said that after I chanted probably 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, I said that last part, because you have never failed me and you're not going to start failing me. Side note, I've been in that place with God where God is actually literally, I felt it pressed in my spirit that says, what else do I have to do to prove that I am with you? What else do I have to do to prove to you that I am with you? God said that to me a few years ago when I was struggling with something and just trying to figure some things out, and I was overwhelmed and all kinds of stuff. So he said, you have an unhealthy relationship with money because you still don't believe that you have a future that I promised you. I want to say that for you real slow again. You have an unhealthy relationship with money because you still do not believe that you have the future that I've promised you. So you live in moments instead of living in the plan. I'm going to say it one more time. You have an unhealthy relationship with money because you do not believe that that you have the future I promised you. So you live in moments instead of living in the plan. Jeremiah 29:11-12 says this, for I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and to not harm you and to give you, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. For I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you. And this is after the 70 years of captivity for the children of Israel that God begins to say this in Jeremiah 29:11. God is still saying that to me. I know the plans I have for you, but until you believe those plans, you're going to have an unhealthy relationship with money. You're going to have an unhealthy relationship with your health. You're going to have a whole bunch of unhealthy relationships. Did I mention that I'm going to do a series on my relationships? My relationships with my wife, my relationships with myself, my relationship with my friends, yeah, okay. Just so stay tapped in. Okay, so now here's the backstory. Why do I have a mindset that I have to live in the moments because I'm not believing the future that God has? And here's the kicker. I was living the Tupac mentality before I'd ever heard a Tupac song. Let me break that down for you. I had a mentality that I would die young. But where did that come from? Where did the mindset that I would die young? Listen, I'm 47 and I thought I'd be gone by 2025. In a few more years, God continues to bless. I'm gonna have doubled what I thought I was gonna make it to. But where did that mindset come up? Because I told you where I was born and where I was raised. I certainly didn't live in the type of environment that made Tupac. Pac is one of my favorite artists, and my favorite Tupac album is Me Against the World. But I was living that. Where were the thoughts coming from? Well, the thoughts come from what I had been fed and what I was feeding myself. I want you to stop and think. When you think about your intrusive thoughts, you think about your destructive thoughts. Where are they coming from? And you're going to find that a lot of times they're associated with what you have been fed and what you continue to feed yourself. So I was an avid Pac listener. Loved the song. I loved the wordplay. I loved even some of the message because sometimes I could hear the message behind the message. While some people would look at a Pac song and say, yeah, it's just encouraging you to do the same thing. It depends on your mind. Because what I would hear is eventually, I didn't always hear it this way, eventually, y'all please don't come down this road I'm on. Ain't nothing down here. I'm trying to tell you everything that's down here. What I was fed at a young age is you're going to be like your dad. And that's a different episode. You're going to go to jail. You're going to get out of your bad, your manage. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to end up dead. Blah, blah. That was spoken. And then I'm listening to this because if my favorite album was Me Against the World, my favorite song from that album, because it's not my favorite all-time Tupac song, but my favorite song from that album was If I Die Tonight. Because I love the play on words, but if you really read the lyrics, right? That's what I'm chanting over my life. if I die tonight. Pen and paper is poetry, power, and pistols. Plotting to murder another brother before he gets you. Like, if I die tonight, right? And under like the B-roll or whatever they call it, ad-libs of the song, it's like you hear the song almost like the Jason tunes, like, if I die tonight, right? Listen. So I was feeding myself death. It got trapped in my thought pattern. It collabed with my lack of financial discipline. It said, you ain't gonna make it so far, so enjoy it while you got it. Yeah. So now I have to do something about it. What do I have to do? I have to have some tough conversations with me, and I've already started those, but also with my wife. And I'm going to give you 3 things that I'm going to do, and I hope that they'll help you. Maybe these are 3 things you need to do as well. There's a story, there's a book I'm reading that talks about the mindful approach to conflict resolution. I think it's the name. Link will be in the description. Really good book, but it says something. It says we avoid tough conversations, not because of the other person, but more often than not, because we don't trust ourselves with the conversation. I don't trust myself of how I'm going to respond or react because I didn't understand my why. I wasn't trusting myself of having financial conversation with my wife because I hadn't wrapped my head around this question that I should have asked a long time ago, but now I guess I'm at a place where I could ask it and handle the answer. So here are the 3 things I'm going to do. I'm going to talk to my wife. We're going to start having financial conversations. I don't care how tough they are. And I'm going to focus on what I can do. I'm going to enroll in a class to make sure that I am practicing good, sound financial literacy behavior. And then I'm going to change the future of my family because I have one. I have a future. God keeps calling me to it, and I got to get to it. Remember, ask your question, because what doesn't get talked about doesn't get healed. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Prompt. I'll see you on the next one. God bless.
You can listen to The Prompt on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. The Prompt is a Rich Dynasty production and features Damon Rich, the Relationship GPT. To stay connected, visit www.therelationshipgpt.com and follow Damon on Instagram at The Relationship GPT and on X, formerly Twitter, at Damon Rich Speaks.